Absolutely brilliant.
Okay, Susie, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, I will. Welcome everybody, and thank you for coming tonight to another one of our Saturday sessions with Harmonica UK. I'll just run through. Please, could everybody mute? And especially when Sam's taking his workshop, he'll tell you if he needs you to unmute. There's a couple of guys around in the audience that will mute you if you don't mute. So we've got it all covered. Whoops.
Okay,
Right, something went off then. Oh, I won't take any notice.
Just before we mute,
Yeah.
thanks again for your recommendation for the Forerunner 2. I'm going to be using that in Sam's class. And very nice it is too. So thanks for that.
Yeah. And so, yeah, if everyone could mute, please. And I just want to say a very, very warm welcome to our ambassador, Sam Spranger. Hello, Sam.
Thanks for having us, Susie, and thank you for coming out on your Saturday afternoon.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. We're just so grateful that you come. I just want to say, without embarrassing Sam, he's doing this with no payment at all. Oh. So we are extremely grateful to him. And we've also got the patron of our ambassadors, Pete Hewitt here, who's going to say a word afterwards. And we will be having more of our ambassadors come for these Saturday sessions as we go along. But Sam's definitely jumped in first, and we're so thrilled that he has. So over to you, Sam, and good luck.
We'll just mention there will be time for some questions and answers at the end, people. So if either save your questions to the end or put them in the chat, and we'll make a note of them and come and throw them at Sam towards the end.
We can attack him and unmute at the end, I promise.
Thank you very much, guys. No, I appreciate that. Thank you, Susie, Dave, and Peter. Thank you, guys, for coming out on your Saturday afternoon, especially as the weather's looking up. I really, really appreciate that. There was a wasp. You couldn't write this comedy if you wanted. There was a wasp buzzing around me a few minutes ago, so I've left the window open. Hopefully it'll fly out. But if you see me do that, that's not your playing or my playing. It's, you know, I'm under attack. Yeah, thank you for having me. What am I doing as an ambassador? You know, I'm trying to promote the charity through finding new players and saying, come and get involved in whatever way you can. I'm a teacher at a school. I was just saying to Susie, we've got Harmonica Club at school. I work at an all-girls school. And yeah, it's really, really great to see young people coming up and starting to find a fascination in the instrument as well, but also hearing stories from all our members as well. So I am going to do lots more work with the editorial team moving forward. If there's a story you want to tell, drop me a line. I think my email and even my phone number is on the website. That's fine. Drop me a text, drop me an email if you want to write something or talk to something. Today's session, we're going to be looking at the jazz standard Dream a Little, Dream of Me, which is one of my favorites. And I always think of the Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald version. It's just absolutely melts my heart. But I'm going to ramble at you first about some things that have helped me become a bit of a better player, and they might be things you're already doing, in which case, fine, fantastic. If they're not, maybe that's useful. And ironically, I'm always saying this to people, but one of the best tools we have is paper and a pencil. And if it helps you to just jot some notes down, by all means, grab that quickly. If you need 10 seconds, I'm going to get my pencil and paper because you might ask me some questions, or there might be some things to think about, and it will be good for me to reflect on those. So, oh, here I am. I'm ready. The first thing that's really sort of helped my playing in the past, I've spoken about having a practice routine, and people like Franz Kamel, when he retired, used to practice about 5 to 10 hours a day and was this classical virtuoso. You know, if you've got the time to practice for 5 to 10 hours a day, I'm supremely jealous of you. You know, that's what Antonio Serrano did when he was a kid, and he played with Larry Adler and Toots Thielemans, and as a teenager, he just used to play rigorously to a metronome. I know C.Y. Leo's got a similar sort of practice schedule, and me being a teacher by day, that's what I do day in, day out. I don't have 5 to 10 hours. I work ridiculous long hours. I'm lucky if I get 1 to 2 hours. And I've been thinking, hey, how can I maximize my practice routine? What I try and make sure I'm always playing something new. I don't play Summertime over and over again every day. I don't just play Autumn Leaves over and over again every day. It's very tempting to do those things. And maybe I give that to myself as a reward once I've practiced something, but you know, make sure I'm working on some new repertoire. And that's, I think, is something that we all get into habits of doing it. If you give me a guitar, I'll play Purple Haze, but it's the 1 millionth time I've played it. You know, play something new. That will always really help you. So that's probably tick number one, is have some sort of goal or new repertoire or new piece that you're working on. Other ways to improve, you know, musicians, it's such a social thing, and that's why I love Harmonica UK so much. It's going out there to a jam. If there's a jam or an open mic near you, go to it. And it's nice if you can receive some constructive feedback, you know, take it on the chin. Maybe you do need to learn that scale. Maybe you do need to learn the changes in that song a little bit better. There's one I used to, in my 20s as a diatonic player, I used to go to jams all the time, but I could never quite find one for the Chromatic. But I'm very lucky that there is one down the road that won't just play a 12-bar blues. They will play some jazz standards or some sort of funk standards. So things can get interesting, and getting feedback from others is so important, especially when it's constructive. And everyone's been to a jam and gotten shot down and felt awful about it. Everyone's gone to a jam and felt like they ruled the room and that they're king of the hill. So just keep doing it. It's so important for building your chops. My sort of favorite thing that I've learned in the past few years, and through Harmonica UK, which is why I love the charity so much, is talk to other harmonica players. Talk to other harmonica players that are better than you. Talk to harmonica players that, you know, let's not throw in egos, but maybe aren't as well developed as you, because they'll ask you questions that you never would have thought of. Find a mentor, and most harmonica players are really, really happy to talk. It's such a niche instrument. We want to share it with the world. I think that's such a lovely thing. You can even get lessons. I do lessons, just pitching that out there. I have a pay what you can model, so it doesn't matter what end of the economic spectrum you're on. I'll take 50p, but yeah, because it's so fun to talk to other players and to see somebody else to develop and to see yourself develop. Get involved with Harmonica UK as a volunteer. That's what I did, writing for the magazine. And my article is around the world with 80 great harmonica players. I met Peter Golding, such a cool dude. Had a great chat with him. For this issue coming up, I met Jacob Vent. Again, fantastic dude, amazing player. Just get to have a chat with them. It gets you enthusiastic about the instrument, and it gives they will give you tips and things that you never quite thought of. I don't know if this is still a policy for Harmonica UK, but there used to be a thing that when you sign up as a member, you could agree to share your email address, so that if somebody wanted to contact you, or if you wanted to contact somebody else, you could ask for their email address, or they could ask for yours, and you could just say, hey, absolutely love your playing, you know, fancy a cup of tea sometime, or fancy a quick phone call, or something like that. I'm jealous that I'm going to miss the Chromatic weekend this year, but I'm somewhat consoled because I've spoken to all of the players going to the Chromatic Harmonica weekend that are teaching there, because I've just dropped them an email and been like, hey, do you want to chat? Do you want to hang out? And they're all lovely people, and they're all happy to have a quick word with you. So yeah, I think the great joy I constantly remind myself in being a musician is the art form itself we enjoy playing, but it's also in meeting people and having connections. So maybe you're looking at each other now in the chat room and just going, hey, that person looks cool, I'm going to drop them an email. Or didn't I see them do something on YouTube? You know, I'll drop them a line. What else can I ramble at you about? We will get to the song in a minute, and I will share some sheet music with you, and we're going to talk about some scales and some ideas. I find the chromatic harmonica endlessly fascinating. And I was saying this to Susie just before we started, is because it's still novel, and it's still a newish instrument compared to keyboard instruments or percussion instruments or brass instruments or other members of the orchestra. And the kind of the fun thing about it is that there's no consensus on how to really teach it or how to play it. And the best thing I think you can do as a learner, and we're all learners, is to get really obsessed by the details and how those details work for you and what does work for you. For example, I love that there's no consensus on whether we keep our head still and we move our wrists, or whether we keep our wrists still and we move our head. or whether it's a mixture of both. I'd probably argue it's a mixture of both, but you will see players, Tommy Riley comes to mind, who's very rigid, keeping his head still and moving his hands. And I spoke to Phil Hopkins because he studied under Tommy, and he said, yeah, it's that sort of efficient thinking of, well, if I keep my body and head still and I move, that's the best way to play. If you look at Toots Thielemans, there's none of that. It's a mixture. He moves his head quite a lot, actually, and generally holds he moves the harmonica a little bit. Noticing those sorts of details is fascinating. And when I asked, I had tea with Phil because he's about 40 minutes down the road. You know, what did Tommy Riley say to him? It's about getting obsessed of what's the most efficient way to move from this hole to that hole. Is it, you know, slide out to get the F, or slide in, I should say, or slide out. Embouchure, you know, there's different types of embouchure. Again, I was talking to Susie about this. Pucker seems to be the one that everyone is obsessed about and is the dominant one. I probably agree with that for playing faster licks. But again, somebody like Franz Kamel, who's my hero, or Franz Schmel, as I should pronounce it properly, his whole thing was tongue blocking. And finding your preference, I think, is really important. Susie was saying that she prefers U-block. I don't U-block at all. Never gotten the whole tongue thing. I should really give it a go. There's so many different ideas. And last year, even holding the instrument, you know, some people hold it over the top like that, especially when they're holding a microphone to get good coverage. Some people hold it traditionally on the side. You know, which one's your preference? I hold it on the top. I went to visit Isabella Krapf last year because I liked speaking to her online, and I thought, well, if I turn up in Vienna and offer to buy you lunch every day, maybe you'll also give me a lesson every day. And she did. She was very, very kind and very, very sweet. And one of those days I said, look, Isabella, do I hold it like this or do I hold it like that? And she went, just hold the harmonica. Don't worry about it. You've got bigger problems, young man. So, yeah, consider those things. Be aware of those things. Be hyper aware of what works for you. But at the end of the day, play it and have fun. And I feel bad because I was just talking to Susie about gear as well. But coming from a guitar player, where guitar players, I'm also a guitar player, we get obsessed with gears. You need 3 guitars, you need a whole board of pedals, about 20 different amplifiers and all that sort of stuff. And it won't make you a better player. It'll just sort of waste time of you looking on the internet and, you know, drooling over things that you probably shouldn't have spent money on in the first place. Yeah, the gear. I did a little video the other day where I compared an East-Top, Suzuki, a Zidon, and a Hohner, and they did all sound slightly different. And obviously they've got different weights and they feel a bit different on your lips. But the actual sound, there wasn't that much of a difference. The focus it should really be on playing and, you know, learning new songs. Like I said, sometimes you might want a harmonica in a different key, and people do experiment with that, but don't get too drawn down the rabbit hole in that way. And the thing I always think of is, you know, we've all heard of Antonio Serrano. He's a phenomenal player and lovely guy as well. He just plays the entry-level Hohner 270 and the old one with the wooden comb, and that's good enough. He doesn't modify it. He doesn't do any special tricks or anything. That's just it. And, you know, that instrument is, you know, 80 years plus old. It hasn't changed as far as I know. Last little thing, and then we'll get down to the song and I'll share some files with you guys, is something that really helps me is setting myself a project. And it goes back to that, making sure you're doing something new every time you practice. So a few years ago, literally before the lockdown started, I did a little album that was a tribute to Scott Joplin, the piano player, because as harmonica players, we're always looking for music that we can put onto the instrument. There's not a huge base of repertoire that was just written solely for the chromatic. And if I'm being honest, when composers, serious composers that know what they're doing, do write for the chromatic harmonica, they tend to almost minstrelize the instrument. They tend to just make it a little bit phony. I know everybody talks about Larry Adler's playing on Genevieve. Well, I love Larry Adler as a classical player, as a jazz player, but I hate the riff of Genevieve. It's so almost silly, but some people might like it, but personally, it's not quite for me. So set yourself a project. I'm going to learn some songs by Scott Joplin, or, you know, if you've got amazing jazz chops, you know, do an album or some, you know, learn some songs of Charlie Parker or something like that. That's a big ask, but set yourself that challenge. A lot of Bach's music has been put onto chromatic harmonica, so maybe pick about 3 or 4 or 5 pieces and just, you know, focus on them for 2 or 3 months and see if you can build them up into a little repertoire. I was thinking the other day, the melodies of Gershwin would be lovely. I'd love for a harmonica player to come along and do a tribute album to Gershwin, you know, not just Summertime, but The Man I Love and songs like that. So anyway, that's enough of me rambling at you guys. We're going to look at Dream a Little Dream of Me, and I'm going to share, he said, hopefully, some documents with you. Here we go. So I've got the sheet music from online on there. I will play it with you. On the second page, I've put just some scale ideas, and we'll discuss those in a little while. Can I just get nodding heads if you guys have received that okay and you're able to open it, or I can share screen? No, okay, right. I can see a few people haven't. It should be a PDF. One more time, nodding heads. No. All right, Peter's not got it, but a few other people have. So I'm just going to put it up anyway, so that way you're covered either way. So let's, how do I get back to Zoom? No, wrong one. Sorry, Dave, remind me how I, oh, there, that's how I share my screen, right.
You found it, Sam?
Yeah, that's better.
Great stuff.
Can you guys see that? Is that it? Oh, no, that's not the one I want. Can you see the sheet music?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's just focus on the 2 lines. I'll play it once for you, and just the first 2 lines of the A section, and give it a go yourself. I've put the tab underneath. Don't worry about the B section and going round right to the end, just the first 2 lines. So it's give that a go, and you can go down, it just repeats itself, but then the last 2 bars are different. They go lovely little blue note in there. Yeah, so give yourself 2 minutes and see how you get on.
Sam, to make it accessible for everyone, would you mind just shouting out the notes that you're asking people to play, please, as well?
Of course.
Thank you.
Susie, we're coming in on G, we're playing it in G.
Yeah.
And then we're rolling between the F sharp down to E. So
yeah,
G, F sharp, E.
Yeah.
And then a long note on G, a minim on G, a minim on F sharp. We're playing that phrase again, but and then we're doing a G sharp to B, back to G sharp, F natural, and E. So I'll play that phrase. Do it again. Then we're playing over an A minor chord. So we're going to play A. And then our other notes here are G and E. So we're going. Play that again. And then our next little run is over an A minor 7 flat 5. So we got A, G, and E flat or D sharp. And then to G. And then Dream a Little Dream of Me. D, E, G, A, B, E, D. It's mostly that little last section there is over a G pentatonic scale, but starting on D. So just give yourselves, I'll give you another 1.5 minutes to have a go. I love this song. I'm going to play it again. Excellent. I can still see a few people playing away, so I'll just give you 10 more seconds. Awesome. I'll leave that up for you guys so you can have a gander at it, and maybe you can start thinking about the next things or what you would like to do when you solo over it. Solos are really fascinating, and they're for me, they're things that change when you're younger, in your teens and your 20s. You want to play 1,000 notes per minute, and you want to just show off, and you want to prove that you've got the best chops around. But increasingly, I'm thinking, well, what do you actually want to say with your solo, or with your even just playing the piece of music, and how do you want to say it? Are you going to use lots and lots of fancy scales? Are you going to use lots of long notes? Are you going to focus on dynamics? Are you going to focus on, you know, playing a few notes but some interesting rhythms of those few notes? I had one of my students, because 8-year-olds have more wisdom than adults, I'm convinced, and she just said songs should always tell a story, and that should include the solo. So how do we get our solos to tell a story? Well, the classic thing is to play off the melody, and to think to yourself, do I just alter the melody a little bit? Do I add in a few grace notes? So, you know, things like that. I'm still just playing 3 notes, but I've completely changed the rhythms and the phrasing of it to just make it a little bit more interesting. Do you do long notes with lovely sort of vibrato? So like the last note in the first phrase goes, well, if you've got a long note, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to increase the volume and the dynamics of it? Are you going to add some vibrato by bending it slowly? By all means, maybe you want to put some tremolo with some throat stuttering on it. Maybe you can mix those things. I was playing with a sax player once, and I sort of went, and he went, how are you doing sort of a vibrato and a tremolo at the same time? I said, well, harmonica can do that. That's one of the fun things about it. So yeah, playing the melody would be, in an interesting way and with variation on the melody, would be one of the sort of golden tickets that you can always rely on for your playing. And if you're still learning that melody for the first time, by all means, just break it into 2-bar chunks and then play it over and over again. And just try some different ideas around it. That's just the first part of the theme there. And just loop it 2 bars at a time and think, well, what can I do each time? What's going to be a bit more interesting? Repetition and just hammering in a riff is so important. I never realized, you forget as an adult how long it takes students to learn how to do things like reading and writing, and just the motor skills required for mechanical repetition. It's so crucial to just play things over and over again. Rochelle Plass made a really good point at the last October festival. She also does sort of judo and karate and things like that. And she was saying, to really learn a new move in Japanese culture, you have to practice it at least 400 times. And I thought, well, I might not play Dream a Little Dream of Me 400 times, but you know, it's a good, the idea behind that is a very sort of strong practice. One of my favorite actors, Sir Anthony Hopkins, says he practices lines religiously 250 times before he walks on a film set. You know, that sort of thinking will bring out, you know, good art or confidence in what you're doing. one of the things I wanted to look at, and let's just focus on that A section for now, is getting some notes that we're comfortable soloing with. And I think there's a tendency to overthink the chromatic harmonica and to think, well, we need to be all singing and all dancing. We need to play things like the altered scale and the diminished scale, and those things are very nice, but there's nothing wrong with our good old friend, the pentatonic scale. So I've moved the slide along on the screen, I hope. And I've just put the G major pentatonic scale for the A section up there. Those notes are G, A, B, D, E, G. And more or less, there are a few changes where those notes won't fit in the A section, but selections of those notes still will. And that simplicity is really great for moving around the harmonica quickly, you know. You know, that's lovely. You can get a pattern that will run right the way up the instrument. And yeah, I've always overlooked the pentatonic scale because guitar players use it all the time and they play it to death. But it's so good for giving you confidence on the instrument and knowing that you can play safe notes all the way up, and those notes will be what they often say consonant with what the music is doing. They're not going to clash, they're not going to sound out of place, they're going to be safe no matter what you do, and they'll sound lovely. I was teaching my year 4 class the pentatonic scale on the piano the other day, and everything suits, everything is harmonious, you know. And you can move around quickly. Again, going back to thinking about how we move on this instrument quickly, you can get, say, like a run between the G and the A, breathing out and breathing in, but then you can just slide between A, B, D. And from there, you will probably figure out blue notes, you know, your flat 5, your B-top scale notes from there. So you can already imply a minor third or a flat 5. You know, something like that. All I'm adding is B flat and C sharp. And those notes fit very nicely with the slide as well. So see if those notes come to you. I'll give you, again, about another minute to just play around with that scale, and we'll do some more talking from there. I have just remembered, I've also got in the chat, no problem, Joe, see you later. And I've got a backing track from My Real Pro and also a chord sheet. If any of those help you, by all means, use them. Okay, there's a chord sheet. And oh, little backing track. There we go. I'll give you about another 20 seconds and then I'll start yakking at you again. Yeah, so let's look at a few more things. The pentatonic scale, so simple, but it'll always give you a lot of speed on the instrument. And again, if, as I was saying earlier, you're going to a jam for the first time, you don't know the song that's been called, but you only know the key of it, those notes are safe. They'll always sound consonant, and you can rely on them, and it will allow you to sort of play with the band and tune in quickly. Yeah, I've always overlooked the pentatonic scale, and I'm slightly kicking myself now. I always thought we need to get super serious on this instrument, and we do. We do need to learn, you know, our all 12 major keys. We should, you know, try and push ourselves to learn things like diminished scales and altered scales and all those scary music theory terms. But actually, just sometimes playing something very simply and elegantly is all that the piece of music requires of you to do. I think it's that thing of being in service to the song and giving the song what it needs and giving the other musicians you're playing with what they need as well. Sometimes the best advice is to keep it simple. But going against all that, keep it simple. If we wanted to do something a bit more complicated, I've put the G major bebop scale there, which has got, let's say it's got an added, it's got a flattened sixth. So I'll play it for you, and it should be on the PDF for you as well. So the tab is there. That's G, A, B, C, D, E flat, E natural, F sharp, G. And sounds like this. I found the thinking behind the G major bebop scale really interesting, and bebop scales in general. My teacher, my jazz sort of theory teacher, friend of mine, described it as playing home and away, and playing consonants and dissonance. The scale itself, if you look on that sheet, I've put a G6 arpeggio and an A diminished arpeggio. And the scale itself is simply built by layering those two arpeggios on top of each other. And the idea is that if you want to play very consonantly, well, then you play the G6 arpeggio, you know. You know, if you add another note in there, you get the pentatonic scale. If you add in the A, you get the pentatonic scale. Take it out, you get a G6 scale, arpeggio. You know, those notes sound very, very homely and very consonant with the piece. If you play an A diminished scale, you know, it's all tension. You know, it's all minor thirds. It's asking for resolution. And the idea is, if you're playing over what in jazz they call a 2-5-1 progression, if you want to sound dissonant and like you're going away from the resolute chord, which would be G, then you can play more notes structured towards the diminished arpeggio. If you want your playing to sound more consonant and more homely, then play more notes centered towards the G6 arpeggio. It's giving you that choice of, well, as I approach that chord, in the bars approaching that chord, what do I want my music to sound like? And I want to give you just a few minutes to hear the contrast to yourself. Just play those arpeggios to yourself and see how they resolve each other. You know? So. Things like that. I always love the sound of a diminished scale. I don't know why. They sound so sinister. Give you 10 more seconds. Okay, let's look at those. I'm going to move the sheet music on the screen. Let's look at those scales in context, because at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8th bar, we've got 2-5-1 chord progressions. So those are the sort of places you can use your bebop scale. When you're playing over an A7 to a D7 back to the G6, that's made for that. And same in the first 2 bars as well. The E flat 7 dominant chord is a substitution for really a 2 chord. So in the first 3 bars and the last 2 bars, that major bebop scale is going to sound lovely. It will probably sound lovely over the whole thing, you know, why not give it a go, force it in there. But yeah, by all means have a quick listen to the backing track later and review that. The other thing we've got going on in those first, that first A section is we've got a minor 2-5-1 chord progression. We've got E7, we've got a B half diminished chord, B minor 7 flat 5, and then we've got an E dominant 7 going to A minor 7. It's over that. Yeah, those 2 bars there. The easy way to approach a minor 2-5-1 is with the A harmonic minor scale, and again, it's the thinking behind it is that it contains a major 7th, so the G sharp, and the G sharp will go with the E7. Yeah, so it's quite interesting because the piece is in G. And then we've gone to a G sharp. So a harmonic minor there, again, it's doing a similar thing to the major bebop scale. We've got an A minor arpeggio and a G sharp diminished scale, or a B diminished scale, however you want to do it. So, and then our A minor arpeggio. And by putting those 2 together, layering them on top of each other, we get our A harmonic minor, which is A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp, and A. So by all means give that a go and try those arpeggios. It'll just give you an extra note and an extra flavoring to play when you get to that section of the song. And you know, you do have to think on your feet when you get to that, but we'll talk about that in a second when we get onto target notes. I'll give you just another, suppose, 20 seconds to just try the A harmonic minor scale. I'm just going to close my window because I live next to a pub, so sometimes it can get a bit noisy. Excuse me. That's better. So I hope I haven't fried your brains a little bit with lots of talk about scales. I know it's not for everyone's taste, but I think learning them really helps. I suppose the last strategy I want to talk about for for playing that A section is finding what they call target notes, which is when you're playing over each bar or each little section, there's a particular note that you want to emphasize. And I think that's almost the nicest approach, really. It involves having a backing track and playing it over and trying, you know, different notes, different long notes perhaps, with the harmony and seeing which note you like the most. And then when you come to solo over it, literally targeting that note. So if we look at the first 4 bars, well, those 3 notes are very consonant, so you might really try and focus on the F sharp. Well, that's not the nicest sound. Okay, so how about the E? Yeah, that's interesting. That's a bit different. You might try and target the 3rd of the G, which would be B. So, oh, that's a lovely note. The 2nd, which would be A, works as well. Want some resolution. I'm looking over that, change that. when we come to that E7, you always want to play the G sharp. I just feel drawn to it. Whenever I solo over this piece, I'm always thinking, that's the note I want to hit there, because it just sounds gorgeous. Yeah, and I almost want to play something dissonant, something like that, something that jogs the listener, but I still just find myself resolving back to them. So having that sort of strategy as well is really, I think, freeing, because you get to know the piece a little bit better, and everyone chooses different notes for different sections, and then your playing is all structured around hitting that note. When are you going to hit that note in that bar? How long are you going to hit that note for? Are you going to, staccato it and just hit it once? Note? Are you going to hit a long, nice, drawn-out note for that G sharp? How are you going to hit that? And I think that's a much nicer way of doing it. You could do a chromatic run. Something like that. There's so many ideas you can throw around. Well, that's everything I've planned to talk to you guys about. On that sheet, I have got the E flat bebop scale, and I've separated it again to its arpeggios. That's for the B section, which is quite nice. I can let you guys figure that out for yourselves, because it's just 6-2-5-1 in E flat. So the piece does modulate key. If you're used to playing jazz standards, you'll often have to think on your toes. The pieces will go from one key to another, as I'm sure most of you know. But that's all I've structured speaking to you guys about today, and I think I'm just about bang on time. But the fun thing of these talks is asking questions and having a chat and hearing your experiences. What do you like about that? Has any of that been useful? So by all means, feel free to unmute yourself. Maybe if you want to just let us know a question as well.
Thank you, Sam. And just to let everybody know, all of Sam's material is going to be sent to me, and I'll make sure that it's up on our members only website alongside the video copy of this. So you can always look at it all and get all the material you need. Is that okay with you, Sam?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. Should we throw it open to questions now, do you think? Or Pete, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, I would love to say a few words. Thanks, Dave. Sam, thanks for joining us today. And for the benefit of the people who don't know the story of the ambassadors, but when I was the chairman 2 years ago, we wanted to find a way of getting a new younger audience involved in HarmonicaUK. After all, I joined age 14 all those years ago, and we came up with the idea of ambassadors for HarmonicaUK. And the first person we invited was Sam, who thankfully said yes. And then we decided, as we have members in 50 countries, we look all around the world to see who we could invite as ambassadors. So the next one we picked up was Rochelle Plaz from Paris, and then this year, CY Leo from Hong Kong, and Sarah Saputri from Indonesia. But watching Sam today makes me realise what a fantastic ambassador he is, and what a fantastic. So thank you ever so much, Sam, for what you do, and you do a great deal for us.
Thank you, Peter. Peter did a great job as chair as well, and is doing a great job as patron as well.
Thank you. Barry, I don't know if you had anything. Our chairman's in the building.
Yeah, I snuck in quietly because I've been out this afternoon. I made it back a few minutes late. No, other than to say, I've been stuck with car keys around my neck.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm really glad I made it, and yeah, we'll make sure we get the sheet music and things up on the web along with the recording. Yeah, definitely that'll be my job, I expect. So yeah, thanks very much, Sam. That was yeah, really interesting from my point of view. Fantastic.
Perfect. Shall we throw it over to questions? So guys in the audience, either put a digital hand up or unmute yourself and ask Sam a question. Throw all the really tricky stuff at him, because he loves all that sort of stuff, don't you, Sam?
Love it.
Any questions at all? Wow, they've got it all. Perhaps someone would like to come on and demonstrate.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah,
please do. Yeah.
Oh, Alan, you frozen.
Oh, sorry. Okay. No, I didn't know whether you lost me.
Yeah.
It was just in your preliminary chat, you were saying about getting a teacher. In the Harmonica UK magazine, they seem to have taken that facility out. So you can't find a teacher through that now.
Oh, yeah.
Probably not your sphere necessarily, but I don't quite understand why you make it so difficult, basically.
Do you want me to answer that one, Sam?
Yeah,
it's a policy issue. It's just that we're trying to make sure that all teachers that we're recommending are accredited. It will eventually go back up on the website. That's correct, Barry, isn't
it? Yeah. We need to be careful with the world as it is nowadays, that we're not recommending someone who isn't doing what they're advertising to do. So, yeah, it's a tricky policy issue. If anyone does want a teacher, you can please message us, and we will recommend people we know near in your area. It will be going up on the web as soon as we have time to do it. One of our big issues as a charity is lack of volunteers and volunteer capacity. So so if anyone has time to spare and will be able to help us out with things like getting stuff up on the website, that would be great. But we do as much as we can to get this done. But if you are looking for a teacher, please pop us a message, on contact on the website, or message us at newsdesk@harmonica.uk, and that will get passed on to the right place, and we'll find someone for you.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Got one from you, Sam. It's I mean, when you named the song, I of course went and got the sheet music, and I listened to most of a few online. They're all in C, so I went, well, this is great. C harmonica, piece of cake, right? And then you throw it in G, which is fair enough, but start all over again.
Figuring out in other keys is always annoying, but it's worth doing, and you have to sort of hammer it like there. So I made a few mistakes, but kept hitting it. Peter, you're good enough.
Got the idea, but it was in C. It's much easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, because it was originally in C. I think the version that you mentioned, most of them online seem to be in C. So they're easy to play along and all the rest of it. But anyway, we'll take it as you give it.
Throw a good little tip in there. If you take the two scales that you want, the key that you want to change from, write them above each other, and then that's the easy way to transpose. So if you take a G, for instance, write the C scale underneath. If you're playing a G, look underneath. You need to play a C on that one. That's an easy way of transposing a tune to a different key.
Good one. Thank you.
I love things that work on the chromatic and don't. So like oh, I haven't played that in a while. I haven't played that in a while. But Vivaldi's Winter, third movement, works really, really well. If you asked me to play that in a different key, it would be a horror story. But F harmonic minor, lovely. But lovely. It's just yeah. So sometimes you just have to get lucky, and have that almost like a sense when you're listening to the music. Will this work on the harmonica, or will this be a catastrophe? But yeah. Sorry, Alan or Bob, somebody had their hand up.
Yeah, I did, Sam. Sam, thanks very much for the session. It's well, quite inspiring. I don't want to embarrass you, but it was. The thing is that you said set yourself a task, and funnily enough, I have done this. I'm trying to get my head around the difference between the major and the minor scales to improvise on. But a different thing really is that this week Ahmad Jamal, the pianist, died. And I didn't know anything about him, but listening to various things, he's very sparse in the way he plays. And so I bought a CD of his, and I was listening to it carefully, and it's almost like when he's improvising, he's hinting at the tune, but playing very little of it. And every now and again, he just sort of almost like brings the audience back to the tune. And I really quite like that as a way of playing, so that in a way the audience is contributing. They're looking for it.
Yeah.
And they have, they're working with you. I think that sounds like a nice idea.
Yeah. Similar. That was sort of the first thing I hinted at, wasn't, a lot of solos do just play the melody, and I did the opposite of that. So I did the Louis Armstrong, which is but you're right, Ahmed would take away from it and just leave a lot of space. And I think that takes a lot of discipline to do, is to play less.
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic.
Less is more sometimes.
Absolutely. I grew up with my mother telling me that less is more. But yeah. Any other questions, folks?
Sam.
Yeah.
It's Bob here.
Hi, Bob, how are you? Long time no see. Sorry.
Hi. Yeah. Can I ask? You've got the music here. I went onto YouTube yesterday, and to be honest, the first time I heard this song was Mama Cat's, and I think she had a wonderful voice.
I don't know.
But have you got any suggestions as to where we could find this played on YouTube in this key, so we could play along with it?
I don't know. So I've given you the backing track.
All right, have you?
Gone in the chat.
I'm pretty sure Mama Cass did it in G flat, which is what Pam did, isn't it?
All right. Okay.
I'm pretty sure the Mama Cass version is G. Don't take my 100% word for that, but we used to do that part of our set, and I'm sure it was in G we used to play it.
So where's the?
If you look in the chat,
I've got it. Yeah, I got it.
Places. Yeah. So it'll be in the chat, but also Susie will upload it later, so you'll be able to get it there. And that's just on iReal Pro. I presume many of you are familiar with iReal Pro.
Yes,
it's
very good.
Yeah, it just basically it constructs chords and it plays the chords for you, and everyone's uploaded most of the jazz standards you could ever think of. And yeah, it'll just play it in the background so for you to play on top of. But yeah, I think it's like £10, £12, something like that. But once you got it, you got it. And yeah, a lot of the pros use it. There's another one that I know Rob Paparazzi uses, which is Fourscore. I haven't tried that one myself, but I've heard good things about that as well. I think that's only on Macs, but I need to look that up. But iReal Pro is very famous for just, giving you a backing track. You can turn up the instrument, so it's got like a piano just plonking chords, or you can set that as an organ, or you can turn it off. It's got a bass, which again you can turn to a fretless or an electric bass, and you can turn it off or up, or yeah, and there's normally a drum kit as well. You can set what sort of drum kit. You can change the tempo. You can change what key it's in, so you can learn this in all 12 keys and sort of challenge yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all singing, all dancing technology.
So can you? So that's a one-off payment, is it for that?
I believe so. Yeah, unless it's changed since I bought it. I don't work for them, Bob. But yeah.
No. Just wondered if they've changed it to a monthly thing.
Yeah,
I've got it, and it's great. It's actually amazing because you can, even if you want to play something in the key that it's not originally written in, you can just move it, and there you are. So it's nice.
Right.
No, okay, one-off payment. I don't know how much it was, and they have iReal Pro, which is maybe another 10 quid. But once you've got it, it's great.
Right. Okay. And the tracks, loads of tracks are in there, are they? Sort of jazz standards and things.
Yeah, you find them. Let me find it on my thing, and I'll share my screen. You can see it very quickly, Bob.
Okay. Thank you.
I think the only one you used to have to pay out for was the blues package. I think you had to pay an extra £5 for a blues package, but otherwise, all the jazz standards and lots of Latin and, like you say, standard tracks, thousands are already included in the price, I think.
All right, brilliant. Okay, is that for Apple as it's iReal Pro, or is it for all computers?
I have it on my iPhone.
I've just put a link in the chat.
Yeah.
It's $15.99 for iPhone and iPad.
Yeah, it might be an Apple one. But...
That's okay.
Four scores only on Apple.
I'm an Apple man, so we're all right there.
Nice to
We're going
see
to just
you,
say goodbye to
Hope
Pete.
see
Pete's going to shoot
See
off
you,
now, so
Pete.
we'll just say goodbye to Pete. Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, Pete.
Bye, Pete.
Any other questions about harmonica, things that people find difficult, or things that people are not sure what they want to practice next, or finding repertoire is always the fun thing?
May I ask a question, Sam? Or
yeah,
two, actually. Is that okay?
I love your questions.
Yes, I'm relatively new, as in sort of 2 years of playing the harmonica, and I absolutely love my scales. I know that's weird, but I do. I love them. I play them all the time.
Susie, you're singing my language.
I don't know what a diminished scale is. I haven't learnt that yet. What is that?
I'm still learning them too. They're a pain in the neck.
Oh, there's more than one then.
There's so think of your diminished chords. So
I don't know what that is either.
Okay.
Ask Adam. So if we had a scale of C, how would you turn that into a diminished scale?
Depends, because there's different types of diminished. So if we're doing whole, half, or half whole, right? So,
oh my god!
So it's a bit like, hang on, I've got. I printed them off the other day because I need to work on them. Let me do it by memory. Now that is a half whole diminished scale.
Okay.
We're going to do a whole half diminished scale. It would sound. Nope. I think I probably messed that up. The way to think of it is that it's how you divide music. I find this interesting. So let's start at the top. We've got our chromatic scale, which is 12 notes.
Yeah.
Then we've got 2 whole tone scales, which is where if we just move everything in a tone.
Yeah.
So, that's one of them, and the other one is. Then we're dividing into minor thirds. So a diminished chord is made up of a minor third. So C to E flat, E flat to F sharp to A to C. All right, so those are all intervals of a minor third, and they just create constant tension. The interesting thing is you can, if you move any one of those notes, you'll get one of 4 dominant chords. So if I move the E flat, for example, I get a C dominant 7. So instead of going, no, hang on, let me think of that another way. So, see, I need to do a lot more practice on that as well. In essence, they're giving you notes around your target notes. So if I go back to what I first played, well, as a peak of that, all I'm playing is a C dominant chord, arpeggio, and then I'm just using a chromatic note below it to lead to one of those notes. So right, doing it like that, it sounds creepy like the Addams Family.
Yeah.
But I took a little section like, you know, that's a bit more jazzy. It's kind of implying where you could get those passing notes that you use in jazz a lot. So I'm still figuring it out, Susie.
Okay. So I can give myself a break on that one. I was thinking, oh no, not another scale I've got to learn. Yeah, that's good then. Another one is a bit more of a personal question. How many instruments do you play and what are they?
The harmonica, diatonic, and chromatic, and I play guitar as well. I can fake singing. Recently, I tried to play the piano because I keep getting asked to be the music teacher at school. So I got into teaching years ago because I was working in a school as a librarian, and the music teacher went on maternity leave. So I said, I'll do that, and I loved it. And I'm training to be a teacher at the moment, and the music teacher's gone on maternity leave. So I'm again the music teacher, which I love. But really, if you're going to work in a school, you need somebody who can plonk down on a piano just to accompany the children. And I can't do that at the moment. Going back to my point about scales, is that the advice, again, my teacher gave me was, they are important to learn and do spend your time doing it, but they need to be applicable, if that makes sense. So me doing that just then is stuttering all over the place because I'm trying to think of it and I've got all other things going in my mind, my goodness. And when I actually come to soloing, you don't just play a solo scale from start to finish. That would be boring. So it's taking a chunk of a scale and using that. My mentor just once used the first 3 notes of any scale just to play an entire solo, and it was amazing. So he said, all right, the first part is a D chord, so D, E, F, then we're going to go to a G. And so G, A, B, and then we're going to go to C because that's 2, 5, 1, and then, you know, and he did this, he played that over an entire song. He changed the rhythms and, you know, used minor inflections as well. And it was fantastic. He called it the 3 blind mice, so, you know. And then, so that's a major, what he called a major mouse. Then he'd say, this is a minor mouse. So you can always rely on that. It's just root, second, third, root, second, third. And then he'd say, well, this is a diminished or an altered. And then if you're just playing that as a passing section, that makes sense. Me trying to go, you know, I'm not sure anybody really wants to hear that, but yeah, interesting.
You're pretty amazing, Sam, that's for sure.
No, you are, Susie.
Oh, we'll be back and forth, won't we?
Yeah.
Oh, I've only been playing 2 years, but I really love it. I love all the theory and everything, so
yeah. That's great. But
Sam, can I just butt in and apologise because I need to leave? I'm putting a band on a local arts club tonight. And
not surprised.
Thank everybody. It's been a great pleasure, and I hope we get together soon and try a bit of gypsy jazz sometime too. Okay, all the best, guys, and
thank you
so much.
Thank you. So, any more questions before we wrap up for this evening? Any pressing comments or things people want to say or ask Sam while we got the opportunity?
Yeah, hi, Barry. Oh, hang on. You need to unmute yourself, Barry.
Thanks very much for what you did this evening or this afternoon. Most of it was above my head, unfortunately, but there were certain bits that came through. But the one thing that you said is nothing to do with what you did. It's the giving each other mail addresses so that you could contact people and maybe talk about music. If there's somebody of my standard and somebody is similar, it'd be good to be able to talk to those people.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the place to, do you go to the coffee mornings on Friday? I used to go to them.
I haven't much lately. I'm coming to the Chromatic weekend.
Oh, great. Talk to people there.
I've been to several, so it's not my first time.
Of course. But
well, Barry's here. Maybe we could ask Barry Elms, our chairman. Is there anything we could set up, Barry, where we could have maybe somewhere where people could put their emails if they would like to?
I think that would be the forum, wouldn't it? That would be the best place.
It would. And I'd say the coffee morning is a great start as well. I'd go with Sam on this. The coffee morning is going to be the place you can come along and chat. I find it's often better in person than it is by email. You can use forums, but yeah, I'd say definitely say coffee morning.
We have to be quite careful now because of data protection. We can't just share emails anymore because we're a charity. We have to abide by sort of guidelines, and we could easily be told off for data protection and just handing out emails, you know, addresses. But I was just wondering if there was an area somewhere that we could encourage people to put their emails if they want it shared.
I I think it might be a good idea if it's possible. You know, I'd certainly welcome it, and I feel well others would. But anyway, I'm there next week, so hopefully we'll be able to do it then.
We look forward to catching you there.
Yeah.
Lovely. Looking forward to being there.
See you there, Barry. Yeah.
Okay. Any more?
Hi, Azza. Yeah. If you could unmute yourself, Azza.
Yeah. Hi, Sam. I'm a diatonic player, and I play chromatic, third position blues scale. I'm just starting to really enjoy the chromatic. The hardest thing for me is putting the slide in rather than trying to bend a note.
Yeah.
But I noticed some real similarities in those scales between the diatonic and the chromatic. It's just that damn button, and I'm getting there, but I think it must be easier if you're a diatonic player. But it's it's a whole different instrument, isn't it?
It really is. I was thinking about this actually because I always, as I said, overlook the pentatonic scale. But if you play Duke, it's it's the same mouth movement. I'm playing it in G there, so it's not what he played it in.
Yeah.
But in terms of bending, vibrato is really important on the chromatic. So actually, don't overlook how important your diatonic chops are. Because, and again, when I met Isabella, she was like, yeah, you're definitely a diatonic player. And if you listen to Franz Kamel, he talks about bending a note incredibly subtly as a form of vibrato. So I'm not bending to choke the note. Yeah, but it's almost, it helps you.
I really struggle with the valved ones. The valved ones I really struggle with to bend. I've got a lyra which is valved, and I can't bend on that. But I've also got what is that one? An S top, and I can bend on that one. That's fine.
Right, sure.
A valved chromatic I struggle with.
Interesting.
I think it's because I'm used to really hitting the bends rather than being gentle. So I think it's a work in progress.
It's a similar thing. I had that when I first time I saw Rob Paparazzi. I couldn't believe how loud he got a chromatic. And he really does hit it like that. But I had a similar thing as a diatonic player. I'd really hit it. Then when I played chromatic, I'd always play quietly. And just over time, it's learning to be what the tolerances of the instrument are and to push the reeds in a different way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to do volume increases because we're on the internet.
Quite interesting, actually. I sent a couple of diatonics to John Cook, and he actually valved a couple of them down the bottom end. I had to take the valves off of the diatonics. I couldn't get on with them, just couldn't. So I think it's just me, getting used to the instrument, really. But that was a great session. Thank you. Yeah.
Just adding to that, just say the E-Stop now make the Forerunner 2.0, and they actually, I think they're marketing it towards the diatonic player. They make it in all 12 keys now.
Oh, brilliant!
And that's completely valveless, and they're very, very good.
Is that the Forerunner 2? Is that?
It's the Forerunner 2.0. Yeah, they call it the Forerunner. It has to be the 2. It's the better slide design, and it's much more airtight than the original model. Yeah, but it's all in 12 keys, all valveless.
Brilliant. I was looking at that, so I'll give that a go. Thanks.
I love it, Azza.
Yeah.
And I've only been used to sort of valve ones. I know I haven't been playing it anywhere near as long as the rest of you, but I got it and thought I would really, really struggle with this. But I love it because I can just pick it up and play it. There's no, sometimes I get blocked holes and it pops and whatnot. I don't get any of that with this one. I can just go for it.
Great stuff. At the end, can I ask you Harmonica UK guys something about the chromatic weekend? Is that all right?
Yeah, sure. If you stay on at the end, Azza, and then we'll talk. But I think we should just counterpoint that, Sam, with we would encourage everyone who owns the chromatic harmonica to learn all their keys, all their scales on the C harmonica, wouldn't we?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Any more before we wrap up tonight?
Can I be cheeky and say, if you have a chromatic, why do you need it in other keys? You've got every key you need on the chromatic.
I agree. I'd agree with you, Bevan. But some people So Antonio Serrano said this. He said he's always been of that opinion as well, but he's just said sometimes he does play a low G, just because it gives a different sort of inflection. He prefers a 12 hole, I know that, and it just gives him a little different range on the notes, and it helps him transpose certain keys more easily. So like I was saying, that Winter by Vivaldi is very easy on a standard C.
I mean, I actually sound as if I know what I'm talking about. Now, I've only recently gone over onto the chromatic from the diatonic for the main reason I cannot bend notes. So I think, oh, I'll blow this. I'll play something that bends them for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sam, would you say that, they're doing it in all 12 keys for the diatonic player who's playing blues on a chromatic in third position?
Yeah, as well. That's probably why the factories did it to start with. Because you see, like Little Walter, there's a few pictures of him holding a chromatic, and I think one of his solos, it might be 40 Days, no, not 40 Days. One of his solos with Muddy is on a chromatic, and you wouldn't have known it. But yeah, that's probably why I guess the manufacturers wanted to manipulate the market or expose the market.
Yeah, you mean they want the money?
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Thanks, Bev. And don't worry, you didn't fool anyone.
Well, that's because you know me, you see.
Great stuff. Anyone else?
Just to thank Sam very much. I found this 6 pointers or 7 pointers very, very useful. It's something I can go away, take away and work on.
Drop me an email, everyone. Just like I said, talk to other harmonica players. I love chatting. It's hard to get me to shut up. By all means, if you want some advice, just drop me a line.
These Q&As are great,
Sam.
aren't they?
Yeah, they're lovely.
To be able to just communicate with people back and forth, have a couple of people that know what they're talking about, other than myself, because I haven't got a clue most of the time, and just be able to fire questions at you is just a real treat. So thanks, Sam.
And while we've still got a few people, I would just remind them our next session is planned in June, and it will be Ben Hewlett, and he will be teaching improvisation techniques on all instruments in the key of C. So that's for everybody. So no excuses for not turning up to that one. So if we have no more questions, I think we'll wrap it up there. We'll just make sure no one else. But thanks, Sam.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks so much,
Thank
Sam.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been brilliant. Thank you, everybody.